this one. This entry in the series opens in an atypical fashion for the franchise. It has normal opening credits as any typical production. There is no recap, which is a big plus. But it's the stereotypical portrayal of New York. Polluted, gangs overrunning the place. It's what you expect from Escape from New York and not a Friday the 13th film. We get shots of New York City, foreshadowing scenes near the end of the film, before transitioning to Camp Crystal Lake. We have a pair of horny high school graduates on a boat. When they indirectly resurrect Jason, they are killed in brutal fashion. The guy gets his intestines ripped out, and what bad-looking intestines they are. The girl gets stabbed. It's straightforward and direct. We transition to the vessel, the SS Lazarus, which is a very on-the-nose reference. A group of graduates are boarding for their senior trip to New York City. The main arc is Rennie Wickham, who is trying to overcome past trauma involving water. Her uncle, Dr. Charles McCulloch, doesn't approve of her being on the boat, while Colleen, her English teacher, thinks the experience might prove therapeutic. Jason makes his way onto the boat and he starts killing everyone. His rampage eventually leads to the destruction of the Lazarus, causing the few survivors to have to escape via lifeboat. On Dead Reckoning, the survivors make it to New York City, but Jason is not far behind them. To refer to this movie as Jason Takes Manhattan is a stretch. Jason doesn't even show up in actual Manhattan until the hour and 25-minute mark. It would be more accurate to call this movie Jason Takes a Boat Ride or Jason Takes Vancouver. The depiction of New York City is very dated. The roving street gangs, the dingy alleys, the grimy feel of the city, but the way the city reacts to Jason is amusing at times. When Jason removes his mask and scares off the youth gang, it's worth a giggle. Unlike the other films, this one had a palpable mean-spiritedness. No sequence in the film made me feel as uncomfortable as when Rennie is abducted, a couple of gang members inject her with heroin, and they're about to rape her. There was nothing in the other films that was this dark. It just feels like it's trying to be edgy and fails to be compelling. But the subway sequence is comedy gold. Jason plows his way through a subway car and the people on the subway pay him no notice, like this is an everyday thing. When the subway comes to a sudden halt, people are angry over the train stopping than being scared of Jason. The moment the train stops, Jason actually falls to the ground, but quickly gets back up. I don't think this was meant to happen. If you look at Kane Hodder's body language when he gets back to his feet, he has that desperate look of trying to play it cool. It would have made Jason look badass if he stayed on his feet, but Hodder made for an unintentionally hilarious moment. While we're on Jason, we need to talk about Rennie's backstory. As a young girl, she was being forcefully taught to swim by her uncle, Dr. Charles McCulloch. While underwater, Jason, while still looking like a little boy, grabs her and tries to hold her down. This makes the timeline murky as far as the length of time between movies. If you went by film releases, it's a span of 9 years. If Rennie is 17 or 18 years old when she graduates, it fits her age when she's traumatized. But I have to rely on the passing of time in the film's universe. If the original film marks 1 year, Part 2 was 5 years after that first film. I'm not sure how many years passed between Part 4 and Part 5 because Tommy Jarvis goes from being a young boy to being a young man. The timeline continuity was already confusing, and Rennie's backstory just makes it even more confusing. Talk about a shocking first in the series. No Harry Manfredini. In the 10 main films, this is the only film he didn't do the music score for. The music was done by Fred Mullen, who worked with Manfredini in Part 7 and scored the Friday the 13th TV series. The tone of the music score goes back and forth between sounding like a ladderwork John Carpenter movie and a Full Moon Richard Band score. This only makes the film seem more disconnected from the rest of the series. The opening theme, Darkest Side of Night by Metropolis, doesn't do a whole lot in setting the tone for the film. Adding to that sense of disconnect, the presentation of Jason Voorhees. The film fiddles with the look of little boy Jason. When we first see him, he actually looks like a typically developed child. But then there are shots where he has a bulging left eye, which doesn't make sense considering in Part 2, the hole in his mask for his good eye is on the left side. Then at an hour and 15 minutes, we have the bulbous head Jason we see at the ending of the original film. Are these different versions of Jason a continuity error, or is this to imply Rennie's memory is unreliable? There are so many questions. When Part 6 and Part 7 presented Jason as only being killable in the water of Crystal Lake, Part 8 said nope. In this film, Jason is destroyed with toxic waste. But what stood out to me was Jason actually reacting to the waste. He's showing signs of being in real pain. All the stuff that has been thrown at Jason over the past films, and it takes a cesspool cocktail of volatile chemicals to get him to register pain. The last we see of Jason is him turning back to a little boy for some reason. The cast of characters as a whole doesn't have as many standouts as previous films, performance-wise. Kane Hodder returns as Jason. Other than the aforementioned flub in the subway, he maintains the menace of Jason. Jensen Daggett as Rennie only has the backstory of her trauma to give her any character. Compared to the likes of Alice, Ginny, or Tina, she doesn't have much for the audience to connect her with. The same with actor Scott Reeves, who plays her love interest and a generic one to boot. Peter Mark Richmond as Dr. Charles McCulloch goes a little too overboard in his role as the authoritarian teacher. It's a nice twist to find out he's partially responsible for Rennie's trauma. Richmond has a storied career in television, appearing in classic shows like Hawaii Five-0, Three's Company, and Knight Rider. V.C. Dupree as Julius was a welcomed misdirection. When we first meet him, he comes off as a show-off and a prick. But in times of crisis, he's willing to be altruistic. His rooftop fight with Jason is one of the highlights of the film, and for the series as a whole. This film marks the acting debut of Kelly Hu, Lady Deathstrike herself. It's not a big role, but it's cool to see her at the start of her career. One actor I immediately recognized was Gordon Curry, who plays Miles Wolfe. It's a small part, but it made way for bigger things. He was in my second favorite film in the Puppet Master franchise for Full Moon, Puppet Master 4. That was where Toulon's puppets battled the minion puppets for a satanic baddie. He was also in the direct-to-video faith-based films Left Behind, not to be mistaken for the other Left Behind movie with Nicolas Cage. An interesting bit of foreshadowing for the franchise, the stunt coordinator for Jason Takes Manhattan was Ken Kirzinger. If the name sounds familiar, he would go on to play Jason in the Freddy vs. Jason film. How about that? Jason Takes Manhattan for me is the weakest entry in the series thus far. I cannot recommend this one in good conscience, from the characters to the backstory continuity to the overall feel of the film. For all the hate aimed at Part 5, I think Part 8 is the worst of the two. And this will be the last Friday the 13th film for 4 years until...